Well, there's no stopping us. For those of us who live in northern climes, winter is coming, and it's coming fast. And what that means for our RVs, well, it means we've got to winterize. So we've come to Grand Rapids, Michigan, an American RV, and we're going to show you what goes into winterizing your RV. Hey!
Hi, welcome.
Great to be here.
My name is Hank.
I'm Mike Hank,
Yeah.
and we're ready to make this Roadtrek ready for winter.
Yeah, so we're going to do that today. Yep. And the first thing we're going to do is drain the tanks. We're going to go ahead and drain the holding tanks first. Take our macerator hose, and we'll put that into the drain in the floor. Always want to have those tanks empty before we winterize. We don't want any issues with water or anything freezing in the valves or in the tank. So it's always important to get it all out of there before we winterize. It's important to remember too that we want to empty these tanks because at about 28 degrees these tanks are going to freeze and we can do damage.
So this is, the next one is our freshwater tank.
That's right, freshwater drain. And on this model, it's located here on the base of the tank below the passenger's door. Let's remember to always check the owner's manual because every year and model has different drain locations and you're going to always want to check with that first. Okay, now we are on our third step. Remember, we've drained our holding tanks, we've drained the fresh tank, and now we need to drain the water heater.
How do we do that?
Well, what we'll do, we'll remove the cover. At the base of the water heater, we have the drain, or the anode rod, and we're going to have to remove that on this particular model that has the drain here by this manufacturer.
What is an anode?
Well, what that is, and once we pull it, we can go over and explain that a little bit. What we'll do first is we're going to relieve some of the pressure from the tank. We want to make sure before we pull that plug that there's no pressure in the tank. So I'm going to pull the pressure relief valve and bleed any excess pressure off the water system. Then once we've done that, with an 1 1/16 socket, we can put a wrench on that, break that rod loose, and remove that from the tank and allow the tank to drain.
So this is called the anode rod. And everyone has one of these. Every unit has one.
All the Roadtreks do. This manufacturer, Suburban, uses this because the tank is steel and this anode is there to protect that steel tank. It's more of a sacrificial material.
Oh my gosh.
The other manufacturer, Atwood, that RVs use, has an aluminum tank, so you'll not find an anode rod on those particular models.
Now that is a mess. That was new before. What happened?
Well, it looks worse than what it is because this is a sacrificial metal because we want the corrosion to take place here instead of on the steel tank. So it's normal for that type of loss. What you see here is there's a steel rod that reinforces this metal, and actually this one's not in that bad a shape. Normally the rule of thumb for replacement is when there's 25% or less remaining of the sacrificial metal itself. So technically we could wipe this one up and clean it up and reinstall it. The pitting and sew doesn't really affect it, it just increases the surface area for the water to come in contact.
So an anode rod like that, that is intended to pick up, these things are the calcified junk that's in your water, and it's like a magnet. It grabs that instead of putting it in your tank.
It does, and any corrosion or any corrosive action against the steel takes place on this anode instead, so this metal deteriorates instead of the tank itself.
And now we're just taking out all the water. What's all that?
Well, you get a lot of sediment deposits like this. It's calcium deposits from the minerals in the water during that heating process. So it is normal. That's why it is important that we always want to drain this. And if you're using hard water or if you're heavily using it in the summer, it's a good idea maybe periodically to go ahead and drain this tank to keep the sediment out of it even during the summer use. Okay, it looks like our water is drained, so we're all set there, and we're going to come back to this water heater a bit later when we get to a later step. And the next thing we're going to do, and it's going to vary whether you're having it done at the dealership or if you're doing this at home, we use air pressure. An important thing to remember, if you're going to use air pressure, that we want to keep that at a maximum of 40 to 50 psi. Anything higher than that, we can damage the water system. I'm going to attach my pressure regulator to that city hookup. And I'm going to stress again the importance of not exceeding 40 to 50 psi. We don't want to do any damage to the water system.
Yes, so many regulators and compressors are set for 100 pounds. That'll just pop those seals, won't they?
You can do damage to definitely the components, faucets, and things too. Now I'm going to go ahead and temporarily put some air here because we're going to expel what water is left in the water heater. And now we're going to go ahead and release the pressure temporarily from the fresh system, and we're going to go ahead and go inside and bypass the water heater.
So we got to go through and open that little cabinet on the inside, right?
Yep, that's correct. Okay, and we're going to come in, we're going to bypass the water heater. And again, it's important to remember to check the manual on your particular model because these valves do vary. What we have, we're looking at the back of the water heater, and it is labeled cold is the inlet in the bottom, hot is the outlet at the top. We have two valves, one on each of the inlet and outlet, and we have the bypass valve in the middle. So what we're going to do, the valves are open when they're in line with the hose. So we're going to close the cold inlet. We're going to reach up in here. It's a little hard to reach, but we're going to close the hot. And then we're going to open this bypass loop, which will allow the air pressure and water to bypass the tank. And that way we can blow the rest of the system out without losing any air through the water heater outlet itself. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and reapply air pressure again on our regulator and repressurize the water system. Okay, now that we have air pressure back on the system, we're going to go ahead and start blowing our lines. We're going to start here at the kitchen sink. What we'll do is we'll open the hot or the cold, either or. And we're just going to let that run until we've expelled all the water out of the line. And we'll go ahead to the hot side. Okay, now we're going to enter the bathroom. We're going to go ahead and blow the water out of the faucet in the bathroom. We'll start with that. Start with the cold. And we'll do the hot. Okay, and then from the sink in the bath, we're going to go ahead and go to the toilet. What we'll do is we're just going to apply a little bit of pressure. With the air pressure, we can sling a lot of water. We'll just hold it until the air passes. Okay, and our next stop here is the outside shower. What we'll do is we'll bring our shower hose handle out and go ahead and blow the water out of both the hot and cold. And then the hot. Okay, now we've got all the water out of that. It's just important to remember that whether we're using air pressure, we want to get the water out of the system on every component there is. So anywhere you have water in the coach, any faucet, just remember to blow it clear. We'll remove that and our regulator. And we're all set there with the air. Next step, what we're going to do is we're going to access the water pump. And the location here on this model is below the bed, behind the bath. Again, refer to your owner's manual because the location of these pumps really does vary by the model and the year.
That's the water pump right there.
That it is. What we're going to do is we're going to remove the inlet hose from the water pump.
Okay.
And that can usually be identified by the white strainer. There's always a strainer on the inlet of that pump. So once we remove the line, we'll attach an extra hose
Now this is something that most people wouldn't do. Why do you guys do it this way?
Well, the reason we're doing it is it eliminates us from adding a large amount of antifreeze to the fresh tank to pump it through. And it also keeps that antifreeze out of the tank. You know what it's like, you know, in the summer or in the spring when you fill your tank, that taste of antifreeze follows for quite a while.
Yeah, until it's about time to winterize, it finally tastes good again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So by doing this, we can use less antifreeze. We're not introducing it into the system where it isn't normally. And this allows us just to be able to put this hose right in a jug and pump as much antifreeze through the system as needed. At this point, now we'll go ahead, turn the water pump switch on. And we're going to go ahead and open the faucet. We can start with a cold. And as our air pressure relieves, the pump will activate and start pulling the water in, or excuse me, the antifreeze.
There
Watch
it goes.
the faucet. Once we have a good flow of pink, and then we'll stop with that faucet. So we're into the bath. We'll go ahead and do the same thing. We'll open until we get a good flow of pink. We're on the cold. And we'll go over to the hot and do the same thing. Okay, we'll go ahead down to the toilet. Get a good flow of pink there. Okay, and let's not forget the outside shower. It is an easy one to forget. Let's go ahead and open our valves on that. And we'll let the antifreeze come through. And again, we'll watch for good concentration of antifreeze. Cold and the hot. And now at this point, all the systems are full of antifreeze. All the faucets and toilet. Okay, now we're back to the Anode Rod. Again, we're going to reinstall this one. It's in good enough shape. We're going to apply some sealant. Here we're going to use a little Teflon tape. You can use Teflon tape or a Teflon pipe dope, either or. We just want to make sure we put something there so we don't have a leak externally running down the side of the coach. So we go apply a little bit there. It's very important that we always want to start this by hand. With the length of that Anode Rod, it can be a little difficult to get this to start straight. So again, always start it by hand. If we cross thread this, we can do damage to the threads in the tank. So we'll go ahead and get it hand tight. Put our socket and ratchet back on it. And tighten that securely. Okay, we're almost done. You know, one more step here yet with the antifreeze. We don't want to forget about the traps. We've got all the water lines protected, but we do have traps below the sinks that are susceptible to freezing and can crack. So we always want to get some antifreeze in there. What we'll do is we'll take a jug and we're just going to go ahead and pour some antifreeze through. And we're going to go ahead and wipe up after ourselves.
My wife will be so happy. She'll know, though, that I didn't do this, Hank.
Well, that's okay. You can tell her you did.
Yeah. She's not going to believe it.
And then we're going to also open our faucets.
Open them?
Yeah, we're going to leave these all open during the winter. You know, in case there's any expansion, you know, freezing that may occur if the antifreeze slushes up. We'll add some here to that. Okay, and we've got to remember the shower drain. It's easy to forget that one. And depending on the model, it's very important. You know, we have the one shower drain here, but a lot of the Chevy chassis will have one in the trough in the center of the floor. Very important. Look at the manual, know where these drains are, make sure we get those protected also. So we'll add an amount to that to make sure we're protected. And then we're going to add just a little to the toilet. There is some in there. But we always want to leave a little antifreeze in the toilet. It's important. What it does is it helps the ball itself from sticking to the rubber seal at the base of the toilet. Helps the seal from drying out. It's just that little extra protection during the winter storage. We're going to go ahead and dump the holding tanks one more time. We'll go ahead and start with the black.
You're doing this again.
Well,
We've already done it.
We've emptied them once, but we have blown some water from pressurizing the system or pumping the antifreeze through. So we want to make sure we get everything out of the tanks best as possible. Okay, the black is empty. We'll go ahead and close that valve and open the gray.
I can hit this part. I know how to do that.
And our next step that we're going to do yet is, because now that we've got everything out, we do have a macerator pump that kind of sits in a low area and it can retain some water. We're going to go ahead and pour some antifreeze into the sink or into one of the drains so we can go ahead and pump a little bit of that through to protect that macerator pump.
Just a little extra touch.
Yeah, that pump has a rubber impeller in it, and that can bind or stick to the housing in there, and the antifreeze will act as a little bit of a lubricant, keep things from binding and causing any damage or any hesitation in that pump in the spring.
Wow, I can't believe how neat that looks in there. Did Mike help you?
Oh, he did. He was really working in there hard to make sure it stayed good and clean.
Yeah, that was me. Anyway, hey, I do have a question, a serious question. We would like to go camping in the wintertime. Now, it's all winterized. Now, I understand you can carry fresh water, but especially in the middle of the night, you know, you want to get up and use that bathroom. Can you still camp? What do you do?
Well, certainly you can use the toilet. We're not going to have anything in the fresh tank, but we can carry antifreeze along with you. You can always use that to chase the toilet. You know, that's going to protect the holding tank, so we don't have to worry about that or the macerator. So you can continue to use it, use the antifreeze as water, and when you're ready to dump, it's protected. Go ahead and run it out through the macerator and you're good to go.
There are lots of different Roadtrek models, lots of different RVs, and all of them have slightly different instructions for winterizing. It is essential, though, that if you live in a northern clime, you get your rig winterized. Road trekking across North America. I'm Mike Wendland. Thanks for watching.